Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our work session here in council chambers today. We've got a lot of good information to talk about. So, board members, if you've got questions about anything today, I hope this can be an engaging discussion hour. Kidding, it's not going to be an hour. ADA, I think most of you have seen our social media posts. Thank you, Ms. Cherney. Very proud of the elementary school and the high school average daily attendance this year, record high, 96, 95%. As a school system, we get to round that number up. We'll be 96% average daily attendance. Think about this, in any business, organization, and so forth, every day on average, 96% of the people show up. You know, what would Sundays be like, you know? So that's an incredible number. So very proud of all of our students and parents play a big role in this, and certainly our staff members. So kudos to all of you. Know that this is raw data, meaning that it's pulled from the end of the year 9-month report. Ms. Walters has done an excellent job managing that. It is also inclusive of, it does not include, rather, students who are non-full academic year students. In other words, if they were here in the 9th month, regardless of how long they had been here, they're in this number. Any questions about average daily attendance? Of course, there will be a state of education the end of July, just like last year, and we'll put all this data together for you. 18 days or more absent, we call this chronic absenteeism. Again, congratulations to both the elementary school and middle and high school. Incredibly low, 4.57%. We've got a couple of our administrators and teachers here. That is a phenomenal report. Again, this data is raw, considering every kid that was still enrolled with us at the end of the school year. And the high school, much better. We've gone from 27 to 16 down to 12.4% chronic absenteeism. And we've got some plans already in place for next year. We want to see that decrease even more. Any questions or comments about chronic absenteeism? No. Graduation, credentialing, and I've got some information in this just this morning from Coastal Community College, so you may not have seen this information. First of all, our graduation and college and career readiness rates. Congratulations again to the class of 25, 100% grad rate and CCR rate. Again, this is raw data. You see what it was in 23-24. You see in 22-23 how far we have come. Of course, next year for the senior class, OBMHS, we must have a CCR in order to graduate. And you're already with the junior class who's rolling up to seniors, 70+% already? I think it's 90 for some reason. I think it was 70% with the senior class last fall. I believe you're correct. That is 90% right now. So we got about 10% of our kids. In other words, we're a good 20% ahead of where we were last year. So kudos to the staff and to the students doing a great job there. There's a testimonial there at the bottom that I'd like to bring your attention to. Just recently graduated. A parent shared this with me just this week. Going to a major university, that student is fully exempt from all math, all English, and all history courses, thanks to AP and dual enrollment credits. Of course, we attribute that to the student, to the parents, and to the school for making that possible. So basically going in almost as a sophomore, ready to take some, maybe some courses in a particular major. That just doesn't happen. So kudos, again, to all those people that made that happen. Any questions about that? Really good stuff there. We talked a little bit about this Monday a week ago about senior credentialing rate, and this probably deserves some more discussion a little bit later on when you look at the class of 25 and 24 and 23. And you see the number that are enrolled there in 105, 108, 102. And then the CCR rate for each one of those classes and the count number underneath each one of those primary categories. Now, I did not include IB and some other things that we don't offer here. When you look at the ACT, it's continued the number of kids credentialing with the ACT. And granted, a kid can be in more than one category, okay? But 69 out of 105 credentialed in the area of ACT. And remember, that benchmark is much higher than a 16 or 17. That benchmark is different. I'm not even going to try to quote those out for all the various areas. But for math, it's pretty high. For English, it's really high, and so forth, okay? So that's a huge achievement. You look at AP, that has continued to improve. You look at work keys, and we're pretty steady there. We'd like to see that improve as well. The college credit, kids earning college credit while they're in high school. That number too has increased. Career tech, we're kind of fluctuating back and forth. We're going to work on some things there next year. Military, we love our students that are committed to the military. And we've got to work a little more on CTE completer. That first row at the top, that is still open. It will not close until October. So some of these numbers for the top will change, but I can tell you that it will not get any worse, okay? On average, students are graduating from college with almost 3 CCRs. Graduating from high school, ready for college and career, almost 3 different ways. So we think that is important data. I know that, Ms. Robinson, we talked a little bit about the difference in each one of these. Maybe around September, October, we'll kind of look at this and say, is this something that we want to include in our strategic plan? I would be careful with this because we want to provide a diverse means for students to credential. And I would not want to detract from one area or the other because I think there's a place to get students ready for career. I think not every kid will go to college. We want them to have that opportunity to go to college as they so desire. So maybe the thing that we continue to focus on is just the overall rate so the kids have more options. I'll pause and ask you for questions or comments.
On the percentage rate, that's not the percentage. In other words, not everyone takes these tests, so correct?
They would not all take the career
ACT,
tech.
but
They're not all in the CTE completer is in that particular pathway 3 years in a row, or 3 years, 3 courses. Career tech would be Adobe, not Photoshop, Adobe. It is Photoshop, isn't it?
it is
There are a
it's
couple
one
different
of-
Adobe
it's one of
tests that
them.
you can take, yeah.
But the percentage is based on total number of students, but is not representative of the number of students who actually took that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Some would have a much higher rate than others, some would not.
Okay.
Now, you could look at the ACT and say 69 out of 105, yes.
Yeah.
That's going to be true. But not every kid's going to have an AP opportunity no more than they would have a career tech opportunity. Now, we do have all of our seniors still taking the work keys.
Okay.
Is the military, is that just like if you had JROTC at your school?
It is enrollment.
So like,
Oh, ones that
Yeah.
are going into?
Enlistment, I said enrollment, it's enlistment.
Okay.
Good?
mhm.
Great questions. So our verification is due in October on that top line. So those numbers will probably improve. We'll include that information in our state of education. Also, you see there, this is information that just came in this afternoon, or rather this morning, Coastal Community College. We got their spring and fall reports. Proud to say that 93% of our students, there were 82 of them, that took courses in the spring came away with at least an A or a B, and 90% in the fall. We think that's outstanding numbers. And I will probably go back, I did not have time today because I did overhead inspection until about 12:30, to come back and add a couple other semesters there. We've got that data for the last 2 or 3 years. Okay, questions?
I know that that's a small sample of what we requested last week. We were talking about being able to track freshmen and how they perform at the conclusion of their freshman year.
In the board correspondence, I included that data. I meant to put it on this sheet as well, and
That's
it didn't
okay.
make the slideshow.
This is another good sample.
I thought about it, but between all the various points of data, we'll be able to see in general terms how our students are doing as they leave high school. The information that Dr. Bowers is referring to is Alabama does a report on the freshman class that enter public schools in the state of Alabama. And generally speaking, we have about 50 of those, and they tell you the number of students that are in remediation. And I think for one year it was 5, and for another year it was 6 out of the last 2 years. So again, and I picked some school systems because I could not get it to import. Ms. Stephanie, you probably need to help me with that data in there so that I could look at how we compare against everybody. But I picked some pretty good school systems, and our numbers in remediation, while we won't no one in remedial classes, is very comparable to a lot of elite school systems. Any questions about that data? I apologize for not having that on the slide. I thought about that about an hour ago. All right. We were going to have some guest speakers tonight to talk about sponsorship and seating. I don't know if Ms. Cherney is where she can come to the microphone. MAC sponsorship continues to climb. This is a photo that you saw on social media not too long ago. Hello, Ms. Cherney. Hello. And Ms. Miller is not feeling well, so she's not with us tonight. So, Ms. Cherney, tell us a little bit about our snapshot there.
Yes, so it's been a great journey so far to collect these sponsorships. It's been a collective effort of many of us in the room, the MAC, and our coaches. We've all kind of tackled this together. So we have a total of 49 sponsors right now and counting. We had one come in this afternoon, so I guess you can say 50.
That's a good number.
So we are excited about those, and 27 of those were renewals, so those who were MAC sponsors previously, but 22 are brand new, have not been sponsors of the MAC before, so we're excited to show them, all these new advertising opportunities. We did secure all 6 of our diamond sponsors, which is that $50,000 or greater contribution, which we are really excited about and grateful for those community partners that stepped up to pay that way for us. We do have 5 platinum with 3 spots remaining. That's at the $25,000 level. So I think we still have a few conversations to have at that level. So hopeful to fill those up as well. 5 gold and then 14 silver, which that's $5,000. So we're excited about that number. And then the remainder, bronze and orange, those still have advertising opportunities, but that blue and lower are more just our membership opportunities. So I know the MAC is working on really pushing their memberships this year, participating in our registration events and just kind of being more accessible to educate our community about what that means to be a MAC member. Chairback seats, football, there are very few remaining, and likely with these sponsorships coming in, we'll have a full house. Not a single seat unaccounted for, so we're excited for that. And then volleyball and basketball, as we get closer to those seasons, I think that those numbers might go up, but we're excited about the progress that's been made thus far, and just thankful for our community that has really bought into this process and are excited to see the fulfillment of all of this effort.
Excellent. The MAC Plus and the MAC, we feel like we're going to do a push for those in the very near future, and we feel like that's going to pick up. Tell us about some potential tailgate peoples, maybe some that are secure.
Yes.
But get your, it's going to be a great tailgate season, yeah.
Yes, so our very first football game, which will be quite the show in there, Cosmos is one of our diamond sponsors, which I'm sure most of you know. They're Cobalt, they're GTs, they're Buzzcats, Lunas, so it's kind of going to get a taste of all of their restaurants is what we're kind of hoping for that night. So we're asking for a $30 plate value for all of our tailgates this year, so definitely not
By the time you get into the game and you have a meal for two people, your contribution out of $500 is really about $200 or $300. You know, it's a pretty good deal. So we feel like that should explode. We're trying to prepare between 175 and 200 for pregame tailgate. Any questions for Ms. Cherney?
So, no, hey, great work, thank you.
Exciting.
You see the seating charts there for fall, a few vacant spots there in between, a couple isolated. Thank you, Ms. Cherney. And then fall seating for volleyball with 200 seats total available. Excuse me, 137 available, there are 200 seats there. Any questions about sponsorship, chairbacks, the effort that's going on there? All right. Capital projects, there is quite a bit going on right now. I'm going to show you some pictures here of the gym to begin with. I hope you like that tile. It looks really good. You see the locker rooms, that is a varsity locker room over there. We had overhead inspection, I'll tell you about that in just a few minutes. This morning from 9 until 12:30. This is the front of the gym. You see the lobby on the left-hand side, and then you see a shot of the gym deep in the corner. You're facing the locker rooms on the far end, okay? So you're looking north to south. Again, another picture of the lobby, and this one is from south to north. I think. I said it backwards. It's north to south again. Moving right along. This is the women's restroom. You can't really tell it here, but that's a little bit larger tile. That's probably an 8 by 12 or 16-inch tile there. Cobalt's liked it enough, they stopped and took pictures of it. The pavilion there is coming along rather nicely. The rain has kept us from doing the concrete on the east side and the north side where we need to attach our turf to, but that is almost a final grade. So as soon as that's poured, we'll come back and put our treated 2x4s in there. That'll give us something to nail the turf to. We'll put down the first layer of rocks. We'll come back and put our underground drainage system in, and then we'll bring some more rock in, smooth it out. This will get the same thing as far as the protected padding that the stadium got as well. So it's exact same type grass, turf. The OB will go on the far north end there, a big sign coming in the very near future. You can look closely and see the lights there. The sound system still needs to be put in, but the lights are functional. As a matter of fact, before we had them aimed, we had some complaints from Canal. They were in someone's eyes, or in someone's living room, I don't know, from Cypress Village. Any questions about the pavilion? Coming along rather nicely. Super excited. One of the things that concerned me most was the asphalt, because the asphalt must cure for 30 days before we can put the rubber substance on the top. So that's almost 3 inches of asphalt all the way around the track and in the dead zones. The dead zone is the area between the track and the end zone. So we call that the D zone. Nice shot there of the Shark Shack. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Shark Shack. He came up with that name for our concession stand. And you see, of course, the field house in the rear there. This is not Buc-ee's. These are restrooms, north and south within the stadium. There are 20 of those 20 for the women on both ends. I don't know how many there are for men. There just aren't as many. Let's put it that way. Discus cage. They're working to install it now, and what you see on the right-hand side is a pole vault tray. That's where you stick the pole vault and take a little trip. Pretty nice shot there from the south looking north back towards Canal. My favorite shot. It's a beautiful grandstand. We are complete with the grandstand. Looking back onto the field, that's visitor stand. Remember, that holds about 1,000 people on the other side, 2,500 on the home side. Coaches suite coming together rather nicely. In the middle there, remember, there are 19 cubicles for our assistant coaches. Our head coaches are around the perimeter, and the room in the middle there is the conference room. Elevator. I was excited to see this start to go in. There's a little more done than what you're seeing there. This is the wrestling room and the VIP room for tailgating. This is where we'll tailgate. That's a 50 by 50 room. And yes, we'll have to put mats down. It looks like a wrestling room, which it should, but we don't want to wrestle on that. There are only like 9 millimeters of padding under, no, there's, yes, 9 here, 7 in the cheerleading room. The cheerleading room is finished as well as far as the flooring. I just was not able to get a picture of it. These are the hydro tubs or vats, speckled trout on the left, redfish on the right. I'm kidding, those are hydro tubs. Just seeing if you were paying attention. 6 to 8 student athletes, and we can take the temperature down to about 45, and we take it up to 104 degrees. Any questions? Any questions about athletic facility before I leave that? Please?
It's getting there.
You still on schedule?
So that's a great question. We had overhead inspection today, and there's a lot of work to be done, and there's some work that we've got to go back and do. So let's just say the overhead inspection has been extended till June the 30th. But in our conversation as we left, we set a date for final inspection. So final inspection will be the 25th of July and the 28th of July. So we are pushing it. We feel good about that. There was probably almost 100 people working today. And it's things that, when you do a drop-in ceiling along the sides, you have to connect it within 12 inches. Well, they're 24 inches over. So they've just got to move some stuff. And there are places where the sprinklers aren't supported like they need to. That's just a brace that has to be added. So there's some things like, there's some other more significant stuff where you can't have ductwork touching anything, that it's got to be raised and moved. So there's one fire alarm system, you'll appreciate this, Dr. Power, that's sitting underneath the roof hatch. Well, that's probably not a good place for your fire alarm system, so it needs to be moved over 6 inches. And if you've got a 2-inch water line that's right over the breaker box, that's not a good place for it to have water, right over your breaker box. So there's just stuff like that we've got to move. But it was still a good day to go out and review these things. So we think the 30th will go a lot smoother.
Have we asked them, I'm sure you have, about breaking these facilities since they're separate facilities? You've essentially got 3, really. You've got the football field and the accessory structures. You've got the field house, and then you've got the covered practice facility. Would they allow for substantial completion of, let's say, the football field prior to the other 2 and work in sequence, or?
I appreciate you bringing that up. That was probably the most significant thing to come out of today's conversation. At 12:30, Mr. Williams will grant us that.
That's great news.
So we feel very confident that we'll play our first game there, first game of the season, not the exhibition game. It'll be played down in the Sportsplex. But our first home game against Alberta will be in our stadium.
Okay.
And he was very deliberate about that. He's been great to work with, very thorough at the same time. It will be right. So what we'll do on that Friday, our final inspection, is we'll walk the field, press box, everything on the exterior. And then we'll come back on a Monday and do the interior. There's just so much that the mind can absorb in that environment. And about 5 hours is as much as a sub or anybody can stand as you're walking, you're taking notes and so forth. That'll give us the weekend to get the field and exterior correct. So when we come back on Monday, we can check those things off and then do the buildings.
Okay.
We feel good about it.
Good.
All right. We're also excited about the digital media room. Most of the funding for this was provided through a middle school innovation grant that Ms. Courtney wrote. And these pictures here that you're seeing, the one on the left was about a week ago or so, where they came in and they put stud walls up in a room. And really, if you look to the far end of that, it's like an audio room and a video room, windows side by side, and there'll be some millwork in there so that we can actually use that as if it were a studio. And if you think on the interior there of having like an anchor desk or a green wall and so forth, I'll show you that in just a moment. But this is what it looks like yesterday on the right-hand side. So the sheetrock has been completed, the cabinetry is in there. It's, other than, I see a few places where they need receptacles down bottom, it's complete, it's finished. And remind me of the group coming out of Pensacola to finish this work? Sweetwater. So they'll come back in and help us complete this task. Left-hand side a week ago, right-hand side yesterday. So you can see all the sheetrock that has been finished, all the painting that's been done. That is a grid up top for lights and so forth. And where I took the picture from is actually the green space, the anchor table, and so forth. So we'll be able to do a number of recordings from this digital media room.
Remind me of where this room is.
Next to graphic design. It's
Okay,
where
gotcha.
graphic
Okay.
design had all of its printers.
Got it.
So we've got a small space remaining there for the printers, and we'll have to move some into the classrooms. Because this person will be able to do both graphic design and basically television production. Okay? Good with that? And another thing that we're working on right now, CSAN and STARS, the boardwalk. You notice already on this boardwalk that the handrails have been removed. This is, as you come in from from CSAN and STARS, this is back towards the west, to your right there. And it's no longer there. Okay, so all that's left right now is the conduit. This was really in a little bit worse shape than we thought. Okay, that is probably going to be almost $100,000 in labor and probably another 50 in additional materials and supplies. So 900 linear feet of boardwalk, and any of you've done boardwalk, you know how expensive that is. If you've done a pier, this is basically a pier over dry land, and it's not very dry, as you can see, looking closely. So all that's been removed, and this is what it looks like on its way out. So there's a lot coming out of there. And this is, of course, part of our Go MESA grant as well, to replace that boardwalk,
Are we changing any of it or just replacing all the wood?
replacing it.
Okay.
Most of the poles are in pretty good shape. And so we're bringing back in treated lumber.
And that little building that's along
Weather
the
station.
way, is it gonna be used or?
We talked about redoing that. That's not right now in the scope. We'll see how the money goes, to see if that's something that we can come back and revisit and spruce that back up.
Did I remember that building being in pretty poor shape?
You know, it was the data hut, and actually it was very functional and very, we had meetings. I don't recall going in there this past year, but the previous year, we did have a lot of meetings in that room.
Okay.
And HVAC's a big part of the Go MESA grant, and on the right-hand side, you see Philip already has that one set up, and I don't know if Mr. Blevins, Real Electric's been out there to do any of their work and so forth. And the other unit is sitting on the ground on the left. So there had to be concrete brought back here, and that had to be formed, and the pad was placed there. And then the last little project, I think, that we've got going on this summer is our fencing project. So we'll have some fencing at the central office to hide some of those things behind. I have a meeting tomorrow on chiller at the elementary school. If you've ever gone back behind there, CSAN and STARS, the old generator and everything it's functional, doesn't look real nice and attractive. And as we bring people into CSAN and STARS, we need to dress that up. And that rear dumpster back there, the dog-eared wooden fence, it needs to come down. So we'll replace that with chain link with the, what I call the slats in it. It's not a lattice style, but it just has those brown slats. And then at the OBMHS, we'll probably add some additional gravel to the west parking. That west parking has 46 spaces in it. For an event on campus, we can park 600. When we go to the gravel parking, we can add another 150 parking spaces. So those are all the capital projects that I can think of this summer, maybe a little bit of landscaping here and there. Any questions about any of those?
It's major progress. And then couple that with the deep cleaning that they do every summer
Yes,
also.
that takes place. Mr. Blevins is in charge of all that. Yeah. So there's a lot going on. People ask, do you have the summers off? No. We find things to do. If everybody's okay with that, we'll talk about professional learning plans just for a moment. I included these for you last year, and I've done it again this year. I hope that during your leisure, or if you need some reading material to take you to sleep, as Mr. McKinney tells us all the time. You were talking about the work session slides, I think. Better than NyQuil. So I am super proud of our central office staff and our local school administrators for the multiple jobs that they have done. If you recall, guys, we were sitting here this time last year, and there were a lot of people in this room picking up roles that they had never had before. And not only have they done it sufficiently, they have exceeded in everything that they have done. So to everyone that's up here on this board and so many others, these are just people that directly report to me and that I do their PLPs each and every summer, and we talk about them periodically during the school year. They've just done an outstanding job. So I wanted to take this time to thank them.
Good job.
Any questions, comments? You've enjoyed the process, yes? This is yes and this is no. Got it? Good, good. Yeah, I mean, just so much that we've picked up.
So you're not going to go through each one of those?
No, sir.
Just so you know, I did. So,
Did
very
you?
good. Thank you
Yeah.
for your effort.
Well, I mean, we've just never done federal programs. We've never done curriculum and instruction. We've never done a lot of the things that we did this year, and we went through compliance monitoring. Now, we're all better for it. We're all better for it, but, we're a complete school system as of compliance monitoring. Would you say so, Mr. Gray? Yes, thank you, Mr. Gray.
I just want to tell you, I appreciate it because there's a lot of effort that goes into this, and some people think just because we're a small system that we get to let a bunch of that stuff go. And I'm like, no, we have to do everything any other system in the state of Alabama has to report on.
Yep.
And you guys do a great job through it, so thank you.
They wanted to model us, yes? They wanted to take some of as exemplars, so that was pretty good. Mr. McKinney, I think you asked some questions about whole board training.
I did.
You're not going to be here that day, are you?
We'll see.
Perhaps. We'll see. I just remember you saying you had some dates. We do need to go ahead and secure AASB. I don't expect you to have answers tonight, but I included the options that she sent to us. And you may not be interested in any of those things. We can curtail it to your interest. But is the board inclined to stay and have trainers brought in and give 6 hours to it and do that?
Oh, yeah. That was great last year.
You mean as opposed to going somewhere for several days?
Okay.
Yes, you're good with that.
And that was a good trip.
I'm not sure how expensive it is this way, but to me, if we're not all
Are you
traveling
saying
out of
that
town
6
and getting
hours in the
hotel
car with
rooms
me
and
and my
things
bullet
like
points
that,
is amazing?
this may be a wash.
Well, I think it's a savings,
And then we knock it out in one day.
because you're looking at $250 a room per night.
Correct.
But then you
And
don't get
meals and
6
co-
hours of bullet points.
6 hours of bullet points, I still get those though. You don't get to completely escape that. But no, we'll do whatever you want to do. Probably though, you need to give us some feedback on topics, because they have select people that do different topics, and we need to secure them. And securing that date Does anybody have a conflict that you know of on that date as of now?
If we lock that in now, that will be what
It's
that
a
date is.
Tuesday, and, I tutor that morning, as long as we don't start until 8:30, I'm good, but,
Okay.
um,
What else is that week? Is that the Thursday night game?
Well, she
of the
only
week?
had Tuesday and Thursday, and the Thursday was that game.
Yeah, we don't want to be state television game of the
Yes.
week and do that too. All right,
and I did look at the, options.
okay.
There was
Just
some-
let us know.
There was something on improving student learning or something that
Okay,
I was interested in,
Student achievement.
yeah.
improving student learning.
achievement, yes.
Okay. Good deal. That's always a good topic. That's why we're here.
Right.
All right, we'll give that some more thought and give Ms. Courtney a little bit of feedback. Mr. Gray, if you would, sir, would you like the narrative of the presentation? All right. Didn't mean to do that. It did it on its own. I need to start looking where my finger is. Sorry.
While you're pulling that up, excuse me, I just take a couple of minutes to talk about, Mr. Wilkes shared the POPs, and I hope you go through and read those. But we hit a couple of milestones in finance this year that I wanted to share. So
Sure.
at the end of this month, we'll have 40 years of experience in our finance department. And also, we hold all four, in some capacity, AASB certifications.
That's awesome.
So, that was in there. And as the audit is in the later meeting, I did want to just take a minute to recognize Ms. Clark, Ms. Bailey at the elementary school, and Ms. Pettaway at the high school for their work each and every day. We don't really get to do that a whole lot. So truly showing financial stewardship in their roles and in their schools, and I'm grateful for that. But as always, it's a combined effort when it comes to being successful in an audit or anything financially. So very grateful for our administrators and our teachers and our staff and everyone who contributes to that each and every day. So jumping right in, so we are still being accountable and transparent with where we are financially. Our revenues for April, 1.1 million, year to date, 28.2 million. And you can see that percent of budget has changed. So I want you to keep in mind, we're now looking at amended numbers, okay? So don't worry about the percentages too much because they will build throughout the summer and into the fall. Expenditures, 3.7 million, year to date, 25.9 million. And as I look at this, I really just think we're standing in a good place financially. I will not speak too much on the revenues and the expenditure charts, as those really just have not changed too much. But I will talk about sales tax. Key revenue source for us was just under $400,000 last month. To note, from the data we get from the county, sales tax itself is down 0.8%, okay? And that's just compared to April of last year. Now, the second part of that we get is called use tax, and that tax is actually up almost 34%, okay? So across the county, that has increased $6.1 million in comparison to this time last year. So what that means to us is year to date versus 2024, we've seen $475,000 increase in our sales and use tax.
Countywide? Yes.
Us,
Yes.
yes, sir. Our receipts are up $475,000 versus April of last year. Okay.
Very good.
And then the final note, we'll just talk about fund balance. It decreased $837,000 in April. That brings the reserve to roughly $11 million or about 5.5 months. And then just for reference there, and end of April last year, we were at 2.75 months in reserve. So seen quite a bit of significant increase there. And that is all I have.
How-
Questions?
How much is ad valorem up? Do you recall? Yeah, I mean-
Versus last year, I would have to go back and look, you know, it's,
7%
it
is
should
the
be
cap.
7%.
Yeah. 7% on different properties, that would mean probably a different product at the end of the day. So it's not just a sheer 7% on
Right.
top of it, but, yeah. So outstanding to have gone from opening the doors to nothing
Yeah.
to round up to 6 months in reserve.
Yes, sir.
So appreciate the city's support in doing that. I also appreciate the stewardship, though,
Yes, sir.
because it's all accounted for. And the grant writing, I look at the revenue there, and I think that's great. I don't know how many more $2 million grants that we're going to get in the near future. That would be in that number. We'd have GOMESA in that, lieutenant governors in that, and middle school innovation, that's 200,000. But those are some pretty big numbers.
I know in 3 years, you had a cumulative number in grant funds that we've received. What is that?
It's well over 6 million. I actually put that out for everybody to update. I'll try to bring that back to you.
Okay.
We did that in cabinet on Monday.
Mhm.
I was waiting on Ms. Miller. She had a few that she needed to add to it.
And that's much appreciated.
Yeah, it's more to
A lot
it.
of systems would just not go to the trouble. So thank you, all of you.
Good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Gray. Outstanding job. Just last notes here, a few save the dates. How you like those photos, guys? I did that with AI. I did not. Ms. Cherney did those. I said it with a straight face, so. So we've got the grand opening, reopening, is a better way to say that, of CSAN and Stars. And guys, you know, we did a lot of photos up there, but the academic impact of what we're doing with CSAN and Stars, not just for our students, but for the community, for visitors, we'll be opening that back up next summer. That's going to be incredible. We get pretty excited when we look at all the things that kids are going to have the opportunity to be actively engaged in the learning process. So that is Wednesday, August the 6th, that's at 10 a.m. And then the ribbon cutting and fan appreciation. We will recognize some of our fans, some of our large donors that Ms. Cherney talked about tonight. So please save these dates. Of course, that is pending substantial completion. At least one of those. The other one is rolling on casters and setup, sort of thing. Any questions?
Yeah, did we move the field ribbon cutting for sure? From, I think we had a board meeting that day.
It's the last item tonight, no, it's good. We can go ahead and discuss it. It's probably better
Yeah, it's-
discussed here.
August 14th.
I'd ask if we would consider, I know we talked about doing it at lunch, but that August board meeting is also what we did last year. I'd like to do it again, is recognize all of our 99th percentile kids. And Culver's is giving them a gift card that night too. So it gets a great opportunity to get one of our sponsors involved. It was a really good turnout last year, so I would like to do that in the Performing Arts Center on Thursday instead of Tuesday. And just, the work session would be,
You want to meet Tuesday
You mean
instead of
Tuesday
Thursday?
what did I say?
You said Thursday.
So we're going to do,
Like I said,
Instead-
Tuesday instead of Thursday.
instead of the 14th, we're looking at August 12th.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's what I meant.
At the
So
same
sorry.
time.
I understood it that way.
Thank you, sir.
What time?
Yeah, 4:30.
Okay.
And pretty much the work session will be recognizing our students, and then we'll go right into the board meeting, and August typically is a pretty light month for action items, as is July. So we should be in pretty good shape.
Okay.
Got it.
Everybody's good.
Yes.
We'll make that public publicly known. I am through, sir.
Going to, do we have anybody sign up? Do I need to recess or adjourn? On the speaking list?
No one.
No one? Okay, we will adjourn the work session and then we will start the board meeting in 5 minutes. We'll go ahead and get started, and at this time, Mr. Randy Wilks will lead us in the invocation.
If you would please bow your heads. Father God, we thank you for this evening and for the many blessings of life. We thank you for being so good to Orange Beach and Orange Beach City Schools. Father God, we just pray for the things that we are working on tonight, for the things that we are contemplating, Father God, that we will always focus first and foremost on what's best for our students and, Father God, what's best for our school system. And we just pray, Father God, that we will lean on you for all of our understanding. We thank you for our board. We thank you for our students. We thank you for our parents. And we thank you for this community and for all of our staff members. We pray these things tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, and if you would stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. McKinney?
Here.
Dr. Ballard?
Here.
Ms. Robinson?
Here.
Ms. Nix?
Here.
Mr. Stewart?
We do have a quorum. The agenda has been posted. You had an opportunity to review it. The chair would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Have a
Second.
motion by Dr. Bauer, second by Ms. Nix. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. The previous minutes have also been posted. You've had a chance to review those. The chair would entertain a motion of the regular meeting from the May 8th, 25 meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Robinson, second by Dr. Bauer. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Recognition of guests.
Thank you. This evening, we have with us, well, first of all, let me introduce Katie Hurst. Katie's compelled to be here by Auburn University. She's in a master's in administration program, so kudos on that. And her escort is Josh Burleson. We have Rachel Young and Kirsten Owens. They're here tonight. You're going to be presenting the audit, if I'm not mistaken. Ms. Brownlee, again, thank you for being here, and the rest is family. And Tiffany said that she wanted to be presented tonight. So this is Queen Tiffany Walters.
Thank you. And War Eagle, by the way. Public comments? None?
We have
No
none.
one listed? A report of financial audits. Mr. Wilks.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Gray, would you come introduce our guest, please?
So Ms. Kirsten and Ms. Rachel are here. I think Ms. Kirsten's probably going to talk about the audit. So, all yours.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Owens. I'm the audit manager at Aviso Group, and I'm also in charge of your audit. And then I have Rachel Young here as well. She's our CEO and managing shareholder, and she is also the engagement partner on your audit. So I don't know if you have it in front of you. I'm sure you guys have looked through this already, but I'm flipping to page 1. This is your audit opinion. You guys received an unmodified opinion this year, just like you did last year. It's the highest opinion you can receive. It just means everything's presented fairly in all material respects, so congrats on that. I did want to point out that if you're looking at last year's, these financial statements look completely different. Last year you had to have the 15-month audit because it was your first year in You also had to have a single audit, so there would have been a extra paragraph in the back of the report that talked about your CFA. You guys had received over $750,000 in federal awards. You did not this year, so you did not have a single audit. If you skip a little further to page 3, this is your statement of net position, which is essentially your balance sheet. You guys did have an increase in your assets this year in cash, receivables, capital assets, obviously with all of your projects going on, and then your overall total net position increased as well. I did want to point out the long-term liabilities here. You know, it looks like you have $21.4 million in debt. That is not what that is. That is your net pension liability. And your OPEB, which is not a true liability that you guys owe next year in 5 years. It's just an estimated number by the RSA based on morality rates and the life of your employees. So I did want to point that out. And then if you go to the next page, this is your statement of activities, which is similar to your income statement. This is the one that looks a lot different from last year, because last year you had to recognize all of your assets and buildings and stuff coming over from the commission. You also had your city apportionments were a lot larger than last year. You also had that initial recognition of your net pension liability and everything, so that all had to run through here to recognize that. I personally like to look at page 7. This is more of a cash basis income statement, so it does not include those changes in your pension liability and your OPEB. It doesn't include your depreciation and everything. You can see what you guys spent in capital outlay on your projects this year, and then you can also see your appropriations from the city. And so you did have a positive net fund balance, so that is great. Now I'm going a little further, almost all the way to the back, to page 31, 32. I skipped right over the notes. If you want to read those, feel free to. It just goes into a little more detail on how you guys account for things, how things are presented. There's multiple pages in there on the pension liability and the OPEB and how they come up with those. So this is your budget to actual. I know you guys really like to dig into this and look at it. So you have the general fund, and the next page is your special revenue fund. And then the last thing I want to touch on is page 39. You'll see our letterhead again. And so this is your report on your internal controls. Last year, you did have a comment in here about your segregation of duties. There just wasn't a lot of separation with the things that Matt did and his team. And, you know, since this year you guys did get a couple more people and updated all of that, you do not have that comment anymore. Your controls looked great as well.
Everyone understand that? Matt did? That's all that matters. No, actually, there are 2 people now that understand. It's what I gathered from that. But whereas Matt was having to do a lot of things by himself, bringing Ms. Heather on, of course, gives us a second person. And I picked up a few responsibilities, I'm sure, somewhere along the way as well. So the check and balances are there.
Yes, Matt does a fantastic job. He's super knowledgeable, answers all my questions. I send him 100 emails and phone calls, and it's great.
Excellent work.
Yeah,
You guys have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you,
Thank you,
accounting
Matt.
team. Ms. Heather said we should clap now, yes? Thank you, guys.
Thank you for making the drive. It's a long drive. Bruton. Mr. Wilkes, are you ready for the next item?
I am, sir. I think we're down to announcements. Yes, first and foremost tonight, we'd like to congratulate the Orange Beach shooting team. We're very proud to recognize their outstanding performances at the Alabama Scholastic Clay Target Program State Championship. Of course, they brought home 14 medals, showcasing individual excellence and team success. So congratulations to the Orange Beach shooting team. Our students are on that team, and just job well done. Congratulations. Any comments? Of course, I've got all the other details here, the various students and how well they did.
Not to put you on the spot, but there looked to be a lot more participants this year than in
Yeah,
in the
it was a
past.
good number. Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah, very proud of that.
Okay.
Very proud. All right, second item is that of the calendar of events. I think we need to just take a quick look at that to make sure we're all on the same page. Our summer literacy and numeracy programs have begun. We've begun our 4-day work week. Last week was our first week of that. We've got about 7 more, I think, or some of you do. A lot of professional development taking place all summer long. It will not be long before we will have new employee orientation. We'll have Institute. There's a day at the Oasis. And Igniting the Imagination on August the 6th. The reopening of CSAN and STARS, we've addressed that. And thank you for approving the 12th, informally approving the 12th on that work session and board meeting at 4:30. It will need to be at the Performing Arts, and we need to make sure it's posted that way. And we'll have the 99th percentile award ceremony that night. I just feel sure we're going to have a lot of students in that category again. The 14th is the facility reveal, the fan appreciation night. That, of course, will be in the gymnasium. Will you make a note to be there at 6:15? Pretend this is your wedding, and we will have pictures on the front side. It starts at 7, but we need everybody there for photos at 6:15. And Mr. Hanley, if you'll remind the city council, 6:15 for photos that night, okay?
August 14th.
And we will send out that save the date, but I need to put a note in there for all of our elected officials. I want them in that wonderful photo. And then we've got the statewide coverage of the Game of the Week on the 18th. Excited about the Sounds of the Island Band Festival on the 27th. We've already pegged a date for the Legacy Banquet and the Region 1 Canine Association Exhibition and Competition. We will have 75 police dogs in the stadium. That's going to be interesting. And we've got Seafood Festival on there, and I think I skipped Freedom Fest somehow. Yeah, Freedom Fest is September 20th through the 21st. So there is a lot already on the calendar. Everybody good with that?
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. And just one more time, I wanted officially to get this in the minutes of the meeting tonight. We're doing a lot of things extremely well. I've called this the 100 Club, the 100 Proficiency Club. We've already mentioned credentialing. We've mentioned graduation rate. We have not mentioned third grade reading. 100% of all third graders reading at or above grade level. Second year in a row, they increased the rigor of that test, or the cut score, and our students not only met expectations but exceeded, and just did a wonderful job there. I've got Representative Francis Hope Jones and Senator Chris Elliott sent us congratulatory remarks. Is there something in the media today about that?
I didn't see it.
And maybe Satsuma did something very similar to that. I haven't seen it either, but there may be something out there that I've missed.
Yeah.
But they both, it was interesting that they both texted me today, so that's good. That's great. And then, of course, we don't take for granted our health ratings. There's some things we know we're going to do. We're going to win softball state championships, we're going to have 100% reading at or above grade level, and we're going to get 100% in the lunchroom.
Absolutely.
Mr. Blevins, quote unquote. Thank you, sir. Quote, end quote. There you go. All right, that's all the announcements, sir.
Thank you. Let's get to the action items.
Action item number 1, the superintendent recommends the approval of the following personnel recommendations. Mr. McKinney, I'll ask the board if there are any set-asides.
Seeing none.
We have recommendations tonight for certified items, certified persons, retirement of certified employees, 24-25 school year. And then we've got some employment recommendations for certified people for the 25-26 school year. Classified employees, the recommendation of certified employees for the that should be classified. Yes, classified people, 25 through 26. If you'll log in and change that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion for the recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Robinson, second by Ms. Nix. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Very good. Action item number 2, the superintendent recommends board approval of the financial statements as attached.
Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Bauer, second by
Second.
Ms. Nix. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Third and final action item this evening is that of a job description and salary schedule for the athletic trainer. The superintendent recommends approval of that job description and salary schedule for the position, again, of athletic trainer. This is the second and final reading.
Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Robinson, second by Dr. Bauer. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Discussion items.
Mr. McKinney, the first discussion item is that of a new board policy. This is the first reading of this board policy. I'm going to open up the wireless communication device policy. This is a result of legislation from the state level, and we must develop this policy. And you can see there the purpose and the definitions. Board members, you've had this a couple of days now. I want to alert you to wireless earbuds, smartphones, and smart watches. Any changes that I made since I sent it out the first time in red, and then since that time, I made that change in green, okay? This comes as a recommendation from one of your fellow board members that we include that, and I think it's a good idea. When I say that, I'm referring to the smartwatch. Just so it would be covered as it was written, but I think there are a lot of people that just need that fully explained.
I got a question. Wouldn't pagers be considered antiquated technology?
It would be. I didn't see fax machines in there either.
I just,
Or blankets and smoke signals, but,
yeah.
our kids are pretty creative, and Mr. Wilkes, it didn't say, or Mr. Shaw, excuse me, or
Those are in museums
Dr.
now.
Law, it did not say fax machines.
And I want to tell you, they're aware of it too.
Yes, sir.
I've been asked about it at a store.
About what?
Whether we want to pass this. I said, we have to.
Yeah.
And they know about it. This is kind of funny.
Well,
Well, this directly affects something very important to them.
yes, it does. And in this, we have to develop some procedures, and we're going to get to that in just a moment, and I'm sure you'll have some input with that. Basically, the Focus Act here really disallows for any of those devices to be on campus. Now, when I say on campus, it talks about school policy. And Mr. Campbell, you feel free to chime in here because I'm sure you've seen this policy several different ways. And I did compare what I had wrote previously to AASB's, and the red font is really just some things that AASB maybe said that we needed to bring over. The school-provided storage was one of their recommendations. And this may be your biggest question. For most kids who ride a private vehicle to school, leaving it in the car is probably the best solution. But for 7th and 8th graders, and even 5th and 6th graders, I've been told, I've learned a lot. This is somewhat the recommendation that we've got now. And Mr. Blevins, this is actually an old photo that you have been working with the principals to come up with a better solution. But at the high school, and I don't want to get too far down the pig trail as far as procedures, because Mr. Shaw has to have the flexibility to put these things where he feels like they need to go, okay? And then the elementary may pick something completely different that is more like a carrying case, Mr. Blevins, that can actually be mounted or just left in the room. They're going to have to work that out. I don't want to get too bogged down, but I want you to see that we do have a plan for the younger kids who need that access during practice and after school to give, peace of mind to parents and allow that communication to take place. We've gone back and forth between keys and little combinations, pros and cons to each one. Keeping up with the key can be, but now it is the key to their phone. So I really think they're going to probably do a much better job than they do keeping up with a house key, okay? I don't think they're going to lose that, but again, that's all being vetted. And I know you might want to have some comments from Mr. Blevins and for the administrators, so please share the your thoughts with those.
I think the biggest one, just by reading this, is it seems like there's some room for interpretation. So understanding, number one, who is going to be responsible for rendering that interpretation, and number two, making sure that that interpretation is consistent between both campuses.
And there may be, like Mr. Shaw needs them in the hallways as they come in the doors. And so he'll have different locations, and he'll have one for every kid in the school.
Okay.
Because potentially, I mean, we could have 660 kids to utilize that. None of us want to collect these things if we don't have to, because you've got a $1,000 device in a lot of cases. And one of the caveats within this policy says, we're not responsible. If you bring them to school, you're doing so at your own risk, which has always been really the policy. But at the elementary school, there may be a need to return to, a lack of a better term, homeroom or the first class you were in during the day. Again, that's something that they're going to have to work on, that the hallways, the entranceways may not be the best location for the elementary school. But generally, the notion is once that instructional day starts, there's no access. We can't carry them from class to class. Because the first thing that'll happen, this law will be broken. They'll be utilized in the bathrooms and other places, and that's really the last place we want them to be utilized.
Well, at least that's spelled out very well, and they cannot be on the student and the student's personal backpack. So you spell that out nicely.
Do they have those little, the picture you showed us, do they have those with a combination instead of a key?
They do. One, my experience has been personally is we don't remember combinations, especially after breaks. You got to visualize 10, 15, 20 people trying to get to that very small space and work their numbers at the end of the day. Won't be so bad coming in because you'll do it. Won't be a big rush. But as you're leaving, everybody's trying to get to practice, to the car, wherever. And standing there doing the combination is, I don't really know how reliable those are either. I mean, we're basically talking about plexiglass and a little combination on it. And if we do decide at some point in time that we actually need lockers, we can do that, but that's at least a 6 or 8 month process. We don't have time to do that before now in the beginning of school. And that's a whole nother discussion. But they have vetted that, and, I'm gonna leave that up to them to make the decisions. Because they'll be the ones that'll have to go in and do the combinations for the kids when they can't get to it.
So once we have the second reading of this, can I request that there is very, very, very clear communication to all students and parents about this law with practical application? In other words, we can send the policy, but with like a practical application
Yes.
for examples of, so that A, they are prepared. So if, for example, your elementary school student walks home and they have watch it, people are able to make whatever necessary adjustments to their own lives if necessary, and just have an understanding so that there's as little
Yes.
stress related. I'm thinking more along the elementary type of how many of them have the watches for both location and emergency purposes and walking or riding home, just so we make, for all
Absolutely.
students, not just elementary, but like,
We will be very thorough with that. Mr. Shaw, Dr. Law, we've all been in these conversations. They know it will be their responsibility to convey that. And it needs to be said at every opportunity with every meeting of parents. So,
And then there's also students that, because of medical emergencies, are required to have that technology on.
yes, and there's some exceptions there, back on item number,
Yes.
permitted exceptions number 3.
Okay.
IEPs,
Got it.
504 plans, health plans.
Okay.
For the, occasionally we have a diabetic student that would need that, so. And there are other devices that will maybe do something similar, so we'll leave that again to the schools to get down into the weeds and who can and who cannot. But I think as it is, the policy is fairly straightforward. The one thing AASB put in their policy was this of searches, which gives school officials the authority to read, examine, and inspect the contents on those devices. If there's reasonable suspicion, Mr. Campbell, that the device contains evidence that violates board policy and code of conduct. I think that's an important paragraph. And that's been something that has not really been policy in the past. It's really been a gray area.
Legally,
It usually takes more action until this situation, like actual behavior has to occur.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess this one, I mean, like, legally speaking, how do you search some, you know, like,
You gotta have reasonable suspension, and there
Who
is
has to
a
have
legal
reasonable-
definition, as both attorneys will know.
Yeah.
And as every school administrator should know,
Take good luck.
what constitutes reasonable suspicion. You can't just say, hey, I'd like to check your phone today. We're gonna do a group search. No. You gotta have reasonable suspicion. So think about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want my phone for somebody. I'm just.
I mean,
Anyway, something to think about. The policy's gonna be interesting to enforce. I know, all of my clients are doing something a little different because everybody's culture and staff and facilities are different. I like this one because it's more broad sweeping. It gives you discretion, which is great. So, I like the way it's written.
Okay? If we have more input on that, please forward it to us. You know, Mr. Shaw, I know you guys have been off to various meetings lately, and I'm sure this has been a topic of discussion. So if you've got some new stuff to bring back to us, please do so.
I just know that the teachers and administrators across the state are thrilled with this new policy. There's just so many things with social media and, distractions leads to, mental health issues and, a lot of bullying and things like that during the school day. So, I just want you to know that they're very, encouraged about, keeping the main thing during the school day.
good deal.
So some consequences, guys, on the policy, thank you, Mr. Shaw, that I have struck through. You know, it really got to be procedural, and I really want to keep procedure and policy separate. So we've got a code of conduct that's very effective. So I think just simply reading that our administrators will reference the code of conduct and will discipline as needed. Now, more than likely, it's probably going to be a verbal warning, some type of confiscation, let parents come pick it up, and then detention thereafter and things of this nature. They'll deal with this, I assume, very similar to tardies and things of this nature, not following directions or instructions or something as a minor, but as you continue to break that rule, the penalty, I guess, the consequence would get more steep. Okay, good?
Yes.
And then AASB recommends this, and I think this is always a good caveat. We don't know where this may lead, and some statement in here that allows us to develop some additional guidelines. I don't know what they could come up with other than a smart watch or something, but if they come up with some other device in the next 2 or 3 years, then we've got the flexibility to jump out there and say, oh, yes, this is included too.
They've already got glasses and sunglasses
Yeah,
that
that's what I was
qualify. So, I mean, it's gonna be, number one, how do you effectively detect everyone?
Yeah.
That's gonna be the challenge.
And then it gets into responsibilities that had to be listed by law, notification, and then the legal reference there. So,
So if we don't comply, are they gonna withhold our foundation funds?
From the top rope.
I just wish you had been with us during compliance monitoring, sir. You could have asked that question. For all those hoops that we jumped through and had all those wonderful exemplar policies that did not pertain to us, because we do not, sir. We participate in the foundation.
I understand.
We just don't get any money.
Correct.
Okay. I'm gonna be
And how many
correct.
schools in the state don't get any money from the foundation?
I think there is probably one,
Yeah, that's right.
let me just say.
We're special.
We are indeed. Internet Safety and Use Technology Policy, the ISUT. This is, of course, draft also. This is, again, a result of the Focus bill that passed this past spring. And I do the same thing with this. This is, because I had not drafted this yet, this is AASB's. I did a little bit different with the formatting. but this is pretty much AASB's policy that they recommended. And we already do a lot of these things, we just now have it in writing, and we would be in compliance. All the protection, all the prevention, the citizenship education, there are actually some things that they've got to, as far as a curriculum, develop, and then we will have to figure out where we're going to put that curriculum. So there's more to it than just this.
All right, we don't need a motion on either one of these.
Because it's a discussion item not, we will bring it as an action item
On the
next month.
second reading, okay.
And then that would be the appropriate time thereafter to start informing parents and students.
Any questions from the board members on these items?
What age group or cohort is required to take the class?
I'd have to go back and look at those notes.
Okay.
I don't know that that has been defined. The curriculum has not been developed, you know. Yeah, and I think it has to be implemented next year, and, but let me go back and research that and get back with you.
Okay.
I was probably the only one in the room that thought maybe it belonged to the seventh grade civics class. But, you know, again, the administration, they're a better expert at that, where it belongs than someone in central office. So we'll lean on them to tell us where it fits.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's all the discussion items, sir.
We're down to an executive session, and I understand.
Yes, sir, we need to go into executive session to discuss potential litigation, which is appropriate under the Alabama Open Meetings Act as amended. I don't think this should take longer than 15, maybe 20 minutes. But we would need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote.
No action
No action afterwards.
Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Robinson, second by Dr. Bauer to attend, to go into executive session, and that should last probably no longer than 20 minutes, so that would be, what, 6:15?
6:15.
And then if we get through earlier, we can come out.
Yes, sir. Maybe I can get you up at 5.
All right. So, roll call.
We have to do roll.
Discussion or questions on that?
Yeah,
vote.
we got vote and then roll call.
Yeah.
So you have a motion in a second.
Yeah.
If he's-
Nelson or Shannon, right?
I have
Yeah.
a motion.
Nasty.
Oh, you want a roll call vote?
Yes, sir.
We've got to get
Litigation.
we've got to
Yes.
vote on it first.
No, that would be the vote, the roll call.
Okay, yeah.
Mr. McKinney,
Yes?
Mr. Bauer, Dr. Bauer,
Yes.
Ms. Nix,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. So we will now go into executive session.